Tether is going to be deployed natively onto the Bitcoin blockchain. This is an official announcement by Paulo Arduino. Bitcoin deserves a stablecoin that feels truly native, lightweight, private, and scalable. With RGB, USDT gains a powerful new pathway on Bitcoin, reinforcing our belief in Bitcoin as the foundation of a freer financial future. And these last three words are very important because the RGB protocol is quite technically complex, and this complexity provides a lot of benefits. So let's break down what RGB is. So essentially, RGB is not a token protocol. For example, Ethereum has the Ether token, but RGB doesn't have its own token. It's based upon the Lightning Network, which means RGB is working with Bitcoin as its native asset. Another important thing is that there's no on-chain usage or trackable footprint, which means if Mary sends USDT to Bob and Bob sends USDT to John, Mary cannot see this chain, or no one can see this chain of transactions. Okay. Another important thing is that they have recently introduced zero-knowledge proofs into this system, which reduces the amount of space. It also increases the amount of privacy. Let's see, anything else here? Let's just keep on going on. One thing I will mention before moving is that it uses a thing called client-side validation, which was introduced by Peter Todd. I will break that down later. I guess the last thing I want to show is this. So what is RGB? Well, kind of, it stands for really good Bitcoin. But the real answer to that is that it was RGB was originally connected to a thing called ColoredCoins. That was a long time ago, has since really diverged from that. But I wanted to mention this ColoredCoins because I thought it was interesting to note that ColoredCoins, one of the co-creators was Vitalik Buterin. So somewhere in this process, Vitalik Buterin is mentioned and is connected. So let's actually break down kind of some of the key fundamental parts of RGB so that you can understand why Tether going on RGB is so important. So the first thing is this client-side validation, okay? What this means is that, like it says here, in other words, token transfer verification isn't handled by a global consensus layer, right? So Ethereum has a global consensus layer. It's really slow and expensive. But it is moved off-chain and validated by the client involved in sending and receiving the payments. So this means that if I have a phone and this other person has a phone, well, I can send from this phone to this phone, and the actual payment can move across phone to phone, and I don't need to rely on this kind of global blockchain. In fact, RGB doesn't use a blockchain. It actually abstracts out the blockchain. It still has a connection to the blockchain, though, in the form of single seals, and this is to make sure that you can't do something like a double spend. So, for example, a single seal is, if you imagine like a shipping container, they have a door. And then on that door, they kind of like wrap a rope around it, okay? And the purpose of this rope is that if that rope is still connected, then everyone knows that the door has not been opened, okay? So that's what we do in terms of like shipping containers. But the same sort of concept can work in terms of UTXOs on the Bitcoin blockchain. So for example, if I create a coin, then it's like creating that kind of single seal, okay? And then when I send that coin, it breaks that seal, and then you make another seal showing the new kind of state. Okay, so that's what single use seals are. I know that concept is quite confusing, so actually I have these two images, and even with these images, it's still quite confusing. But just to make it clear, so this is the blockchain, right? The amazing beauty of RGB is that it actually it's not running on the blockchain. I can send money, or I can I don't know, mint an NFT, and it doesn't actually have to be directly on the blockchain. Only these single-use seals are kind of like anchoring this kind of transaction to the blockchain, okay? Same thing here, right? It's explaining the same thing, right? So if you're sending money, you can see here, all of this is happening off-chain in the phones, and then you do have to actually send something to the blockchain, but these are not necessarily transactions. It's much, much faster. It's just kind of a signature. And this is actually tied to UTXO, right? So if I have one UTXO, it has like kind of one message, and then I send something, and then it kind of breaks that message, makes a new one on a new UTXO, okay? So that's about as deep as I'm going to get into the actual technology on RGB because it's quite complex, but I hope that helps. And the final thing I want to say is that RGB also has a virtual machine. So just like Ethereum has EVM, which allows smart contracts, right? So I can do gambling and things like that. Well, RGB has a fully Turing complete virtual machine called Alluvium, okay? It's quite cool. Alluvium enables, let's see, there's a list of things somewhere. Forgot where it is. Here you go. Alluvium enables, oh no, here we go. So fungible, non-fungible tokens, right? So this means on the Bitcoin blockchain, I can have my own token. On the Bitcoin blockchain, I can do things like lending, borrowing, trading, minting, games, whatever, okay? On the Bitcoin blockchain, I can run my own DAO. This is huge, okay? And this video is getting quite long, so let me try to wrap it up. The final things I wanted to mention is there is a token, a wallet that you can download called Iris Wallet, and this helps you to manage all your RGB assets. In the future, also, this will allow you to hold your Bitcoin and your USDT in the same place. Again, remember, you have to remember this is all important because USDT is going to mint directly onto this, which means USDT will be a native asset on Bitcoin blockchain. Amazing. And here's a cool post. It was talking about recent. This is recent, right? So a couple days ago, we moved the first USDT from Ethereum to Bitcoin, and you can actually replicate this process using something called Tricorn. Seems quite simple-ish. So if you want to do that, here's the website right here. And the final thing I'll mention is, of course, there are also meme coins on RGB. This is kind of this is the first meme coin. This was in, I don't know when it is, a while ago, a couple years ago. So if you wanted to get your meme on, it's also possible. So thank you for watching this video. I will see you in the future. Please like and subscribe and give me a high five. Bye-bye.